Hello, guys. Welcome to day two of Unit 3 in food writing. Here is the plan today. We have our first grammar warm up. We're going to be doing something different with grammar. We are going to talk, quote unquote, post about your guys' favorite dishes. We're going to have a lesson on sensory language, and then you will have your first paragraph response. And I can't remember if I mentioned this. During the last video, but there's only going to be two paragraph responses. We're doing them a little bit differently this time, so I'll get more into that when we get to it. So, some announcements, or just a real quick one. Academic advising, okay? You guys are going to be doing it on the 27th. So, if I'm not back in the room by that point, the sub is going to take you down to the College and Career Center during our class period, and you are going to meet with your counselors individually and pick your classes for next year. All right. So if you're still trying to determine what class you're going to be taking, right? You guys are going to be juniors next year, which means you're done with PE, so you have another free period. A lot of you are trying to figure out how to fill that space or what other kind of things. You've got some time, right? You got a couple of weeks here, but don't stress about it, but go ahead and figure out the classes that you want to take and put together a list. I always recommend having some backups just in case just your first choice is not available. Depending on what it might be. Always recommend academic or academy classes are great. Also, taking an elective that you wouldn't normally take. Electives are a great way to try out something different. Always going to pitch the English ones, creative writing, journalism. Those are fun. But take the thing that you use that time to explore some stuff. All right, so grounding quote for the day from Anton Chekhov. Don't tell me the moon is shining, show me the glint of light on broken glass, which goes to sensory language, this idea of not just show, don't tell, but really drawing a reader into the text, giving them something more. All right, grammar is different this quarter. I both in my regular classes and for you guys honors class, I know you're struggling with some of the grammar concepts, and so I'm going to be trying something a little bit different, something a little bit old school. We're going to be doing sentence diagramming. Some of you may or may not have done this before. I would assume that the majority of you have not. So we're going to do kind of like what we did before, 3 warm-ups and then a exercise. All right, but today is warm-up 1 where I kind of introduce the concept to you. Sentence diagramming is a very visual method for breaking down grammar within a sentence. It looks at the parts of speech within a sentence, and it gives a visual dichotomy of what they look like. And it uses a very standard form and format. And some of it's pretty easy. Some of it is a little confusing. Inversion is a little confusing. We're going to cover that today. But we're going to work up to it. The baseline is fairly basic. Most people can pick it up pretty quickly until we start getting into all the modifiers. We're going to work up to those. We're going to take it, little bits, especially as I'm not in the classroom with you guys. So we'll just jump into it. So the idea of a sentence diagram is you take a look at a sentence, you take a look at the words and the parts of speech, and you draw a diagram that's going to illustrate each of those words, each of those phrases by their function. And again, it's all about function in English. I've said this before, right? Don't get caught up in what a word is, get caught up in what job it's doing in the sentence. So you start off with a diagram frame, which looks like this, all right? It is a basic cross. You have a horizontal line in which your sentence is on, and then you have, or baseline, and then you have a vertical line which separates the subject from the predicate, all right? So in the sentence, the subject is obviously what the sentence is about, and the predicate is what is being performed, the verb, the action. Right, that's what this is. The diagram just breaks it down really simply. So in this example, we have our baseline, and which is here, and then we have our vertical line, and then our example sentence is sheep graze. In this case, sheep would be the subject, graze would be the predicate. All right, this is our verb. So as you're looking at it, sheep goes on the left side of the vertical line because it is the subject of the sentence. Graze, because it's the predicate, goes on the right-hand side. All right, so you always take a look at your sentence, you draw a baseline, you draw a vertical line, and then you organize the words from that sentence on that line. So we start off with simple subjects, simple predicates. This means that largely you are talking about a single subject, all right, or a group that is acting as a single subject, and then a simple predicate, which is a verb or a verb phrase that expresses a single essential thought about that subject. Okay, it's no different than sheep graze. It is the subject going on the left hand side of the line and the predicate going on the right hand side of the line. All right, so again, baby steps, working up to it. It's all fairly simple, all right? You're going to place the simple subject on the baseline on the left of the vertical line. Then you're going to place the simple predicate on the baseline on the right of the vertical line. Now, here's one of two kind of sticky concepts that we're going to deal with today, all right? This one is the understood subject or the implied subject. Sometimes a sentence has what is known as an understood subject. So if I said the word jump, jump is actually a sentence, all right? I'm giving a command to somebody else. There is an understood subject within that sentence, all right? You being that understood subject. I'm telling somebody that they need to jump. So if there's an understood subject within a sentence, then you're going to put it on the left-hand side within the subject, and then the predicate on the right-hand side. I'm illustrating this rule for you so that you can break down any sentence. However, I'm probably not going to give you guys too many exercises with implied or understood subjects. I want you to know that it's a thing. As far as I'm concerned, if you're writing this, that becomes second person, and I don't want to see second, person writing in your stuff. So I'm not going to tax you with this too much, but I want you to know that this rule exists, and this is how you would handle that type of thing, right? So we have our first practice. Now, I want you to have some kind of physical or digital notes in which you are actually practicing doing this thing. All right, I'm going to try these drawing tools out. I've not used them before. So we'll start with children play. I've got a line here that I can make. So I'm going to try and make this as baseline as I can. And then I'm going to do my vertical line. And then I've got a text tool. So children play, fairly straightforward. Children is my subject, play is my predicate. So I would come up here. Children would be on this side, and play would be on this side. Wow. Can I move that? All right, there. That looks a little bit better. All right, so we have children and we have play. Okay, real simple, easy to do. And can I just delete? I can. Cool. All right, now we have listen. Right, listen has a understood subject. So for this case, I would say listen, and you don't have the punctuation. You keep the capitalization when you're diagramming a sentence, and this will make sense here in just a bit. But you keep the capitalization. You don't keep the punctuation. You don't utilize punctuation when it comes to sentence diagramming. And then for here, I'm going to go ahead and do you. It's not capitalized because it's not in the sentence. So you listen, real straightforward. Come on. There we go. Nope, didn't want to do that. All right, then finally we have parrots fly. So in each of these, we put the subject on the left-hand side and we put the predicate on the right-hand side. Make sense? I'm sure that you're nodding at the screen right now, but I can't see it. Nope. Okay, how do I get out of forward the thing? Do I turn off the drawing tool? Cursor mode. There we go. All right. So, simple subject or simple predicate doesn't mean that it only has one word. We're talking more conceptually. All right. So, for example, simple subject can contain a compound noun such as sugar maple or a person's full name, Dr. William Fort. That simple predicate or a verb may be a single word or a verb phrase. So, verb phrases, which we've tackled before, all right, is your main verb and all of the auxiliary or helping verbs, all right? Had, been, moving. In that verb phrase, moving is your main verb, and then had and been would be auxiliary or helping verbs, all right? All of these together are still a simple predicate. You're talking about one singular action that is occurring. You just have, some contextual additions to it. You're going to place all of the words of the simple subject on the left of that vertical line and all of the words of the simple predicate on the right of that. So, Miss Ramona Rodriguez has been waiting. All right. Miss Ramona Rodriguez is a simple subject. She is one individual and she is performing one action. She is waiting. She has been waiting, but all that together is your predicate. So your subject goes on the left of the line, all of your predicate goes on the right hand side of the line. Fairly straightforward. Now, here's the second concept, okay? The first one that kind of trips people up sometimes is the understood subject. This is another one that we're tackling today, the inverted order, all right? Now, this is all about function. Whenever you diagram a sentence, the subject of that sentence goes on the left of the line. The predicate goes on the right of the line. But in English, when we ask a question, often the subject doesn't come first, all right, in our parts of speech. But diagramming means you still have to put the subject on the left hand side of the line. All right, so let's talk about inverted order. A sentence phrased as a question is diagrammed the same as a statement. The positions of the subject and the predicate remain the same. This is one of the reasons why we leave capitalization but we drop punctuation for sentence diagramming, okay? You have to keep the capitalization so that if you were at some point, hint, hint, I were to give you a sentence diagram on maybe like an exam, you could then figure out what that sentence is actually supposed to look like and write it down. All right. So, can ducks fly? Our subject is ducks. There we go. Can and fly are part of our predicate, right? We have an interrogative and we have a verb, and all that goes on the right hand side over there. All right. Ducks can fly, but I can tell if I'm looking at this because this is capitalized. That's the beginning of my sentence. So I can tell if I'm reforming this that this is a question. All right, so let's go ahead and we're going to make another baseline and vertical. All right, so I'm only going to do two of these so that you can practice the last one on your own. Kim is concentrating, okay? Now, before, whenever we were taking a look at sentence, the first thing we always said was find the verb first. That's going to mark the beginning of your predicate, right? In this case, we have Kim is concentrating, is to be my verb, so I can tell that my predicate is concentrating. What's performing that? Kim, all right? So, use my text tool. Kim And it kept the start typing, which is weird. Right. So Kim is concentrating. All right. Oh, I'll get the hang of this at some point. All right. Have you eaten? All right. This is the inverted order. Okay. We're asking a question. So I should have a subject and I should have a predicate. I've got eaten, I've got have, and I've got you. You is obviously my subject. Have is my interrogative, and then eaten is a verb. So you goes here. Have eaten. All right. There we go. Fairly straightforward. Okay. Nothing too crazy. And I will let you guys practice. Mr. Robinson helped on their own. Now, I am going to say, as we're doing grammar this quarter, especially because I'm not in the room, you really do need to practice doing these diagrams. All right. Otherwise, conceptually, when we get to some of the more complicated diagrams, and they can get very complicated, you're not going to be able to follow along. So please practice the sentences that I have here. All right. All right. So that's it for grammar for today. Again, we're going to do 3 grammar warm ups, and then we're going to do a grammar exercise. All right. And each grammar warm up builds on the previous. We're going to be adding concepts. All right. So I don't need this guy anymore. Let's take a look at your guys' dishes. So at the end of last class, I asked you to think of your favorite dish and bring that to the name of the dish. You didn't have to actually cook and bring a dish, but you were bringing the name of your favorite dish to class today. Here's how we're going to utilize that. So I want to introduce you to some new things in our Schoology. You'll notice, one, I have added a quarter 3 honors lesson plan. This is just to give you guys some more detail. I think I showed you a copy of this document. It's just so you have a better idea of like what's coming down the pike. Because normally I'm there to answer questions, and I'm not currently. So obviously today we're here on day 2 of the lesson. Then we have day 3, day 4, day 5. These couple weeks are going to be a little rough because there's teacher work days. We'll only really get one lesson, and then this is your academic advising block down here. All right. This quarter, like I mentioned, is going to be very interesting for a lot of reasons. All right, but here's the thing that we really care about at the moment: inactivities. All right. You'll notice week 1 discussion and paragraph response. And given that, I'm going to go ahead and publish this. I doubt you guys are up when I'm up. But that's already published for you. So when we get to the end of the lesson, you can do paragraph response number 1. I'll walk you through the questions and how that's going to be slightly different this time. But we have a new thing, a discussion board. All right. So a discussion board is a tool in Schoology that allows you guys to post and comment on other people's posts. All right. This one is not for a grade. I have used this in the past with film studies to do some graded type exercises, and the way it worked out, essentially, each discussion board ended up being around 10 points, I think, is what I ended up settling on. And the idea was that each discussion board, you would be responsible for 2 posts. You would make an initial post, and then you would comment on somebody else's post. And so that was, essentially each of those posts was 5 points each. And the idea being that the posts are meeting whatever the criteria of the prompt is. So we're trying that out. This one is not worth points. If you guys do this and it seems to be effective, I will consider making these worth points, but I don't want to add something to the class that is detrimental. So in other words, if only half the class is doing it, I'm not going to turn this into a graded exercise because that's I don't think that's playing fair. So let's talk about the first discussion. The first one is all about your favorite dish. Okay, so everyone should make 2 posts. Your first one, you're going to post about your favorite dish, and I want to. It doesn't necessarily have to be a full paragraph. I would, but I want you to go into detail on this dish. I want you to try and describe the dish, and I want you to talk about why you enjoy it. What is it for you? Is it nostalgia? Like this is, something that someone in your family made, and is it, always like your dad always made pancakes on Saturdays or something like that when you were younger? Is it about just this area where you grew up and this was the thing that everybody ate, after work or something like that? Whatever the thing might be that draws you to it. Now, here's the goal here. When you're describing it, as we're going to get into, sensory language today, try to avoid simple descriptors like good and tasty. If those are part of a larger description, then that's probably fine. But I really want you to dive into more sensory language as you describe this. All right. That's your first post. Your second post, I want you to comment on someone's favorite dish. Now, do me a favor here. Don't denigrate someone else's dish, right? Or as they say a lot in the food industry, don't yuck someone else's yum. Somebody likes the dish that they like, and they are more than welcome to like it. You may not like it, right? Maybe somebody really enjoys pickled eggs. When I was stationed in Charleston, there was this place we used to hang out with, and I had a buddy who ate pickled eggs every time we went there. It's a southern thing. And I'm not a fan. I like pickled vegetables, pickled onions, pickled carrots, pickled beets, stuff like that. I think is fine. But pickled eggs for me, for some reason, it's just not my thing. But that's fine. I don't have to like them. I'm not that person, right? So just kind of bear that in mind. Your commentary should be asking questions. Hey, I've had that before. Or I've never had that before. Or when would you eat that? All that kind of stuff. You are not required to necessarily comment on people's comments, but I think that would help engender a better discussion. All right. So that is a thing that I want you guys to do this week. You'll see that there is a due date, right? It's right up here. So the due date, your cutoff is essentially Friday. So you have all week to do this one discussion board. I think there is going to be a discussion for day 3. I've just finished doing that lesson. That one's over logical fallacies. So I will probably end up having a discussion for that one too. That due date wouldn't be till like the next class the next week. So I figure a week is fair enough for each of these. All right. Okay. So talking about favorite dishes, right? And sensory language. So what happened to... I thought I had a slide. So I feel like my slides got jumbled up at some point. Because I had an example slide, and then after the example slide should have been the slide about... I did somehow erase a slide. I must have been hitting delete at some point. All right, so discussion boards. Weird. All right, so once you make that post, let me see. I will probably... I don't want to make a post yet because sometimes when a teacher makes a post in a board, everyone just comments on their post and it doesn't work in the structure. So I'll just comment here on my favorite dish. I don't have a singular favorite. I love cooking. I'm spending a lot of time in the kitchen right now doing a lot of cooking and other things. But if I had to pick one that really stood out for me, my grandmother, my mom's family grew up and lives in Minnesota, Chicago, Wisconsin, that whole kind of area. My grandmother, who is from Chicago and Wisconsin, and she made tacos all the time when we would go visit her, and they were not what you would call regular tacos. So essentially, she would take a corn tortilla, taco meat, and a slice of American cheese. She would fold over the corn tortilla and deep fry it. And I'm from Texas, right? I had friends, family who would make homemade barbacoa, who would make all kinds of like real, authentic, actual tacos and stuff, right? all kinds of really, really, good things, lingua and stuff. And but for some reason, I really enjoyed my grandmother's tacos. I would eat them, God, by the dozens. Like they were just really good. Awful in terms of concept of taco, right? A Chicago, Midwest person's idea of a taco. I don't know if she ever had a taco that wasn't from, the Midwest, but I really enjoyed it, and that's a dish that really stands out for me. Um, and so that would be, something I would comment on. And if I was looking for really good sensory language, I would say, the grease on these things, because they were deep fried, the grease would run down your arms while you were holding one and biting into it, right? Like there was this viscous, glistening grease on it because she wouldn't drain them. She would just put them on a plate. And I think she used like way too much taco seasoning. So like this bite of the seasoning within, the actual taco was just really stood out for me. And you had the American cheese, which melts really good, as much as it's like cheese food. And it would just be gooey and amazing. So that would be like me describing with good sensory language. But let's talk about sensory language. As I'm asking you to use it, we should probably explain it to you. So I'm going to show you guys a series of images. Now, obviously, if we were in class, I would be asking you to, describe these. But I would say if you're taking notes, try to practice writing down, some types of words. So I'll give it a minute here before I throw out any. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to throw out any words. I'm gonna write some stuff down and see what you can write down. Here's our first image. I want you to describe it in a sentence with good detail. I'll give you a moment. All right, here is our second image. And I'm not giving you qualifiers. I simply want you to describe the image. All right, and here is a third image. So you'll notice that all three of these images are food, right? I mean, it's food writing. But here's my further question. When I showed you the image, how many of you actually, like, your mouth started to water, or you started to have some kind of memory of a flavor or a taste or a time that you experienced that, right? Well, like when I see a steak like this on a grill, like I hear the sizzle, right? I see this image of fire, kicking up around the steak and grease coming off it. Like I can smell it, right? Or this, it's not just the s'mores. I don't eat s'mores anymore because I'm diabetic, but I try to enjoy that time with my family. My kids love s'mores. And so, like, when I see this, I'm hearing family stories and a campfire and all that fun stuff, right? What it feels like for someone to leave the marshmallow in for too long and then it catches on fire, right? And then they have to blow it out. Oh my gosh. And there's some people who love when the marshmallow is, you know, um, burnt to a crisp, and some people like it just browned, and some people like it barely scorched. And here, like a really good, bowl of noodles, ramen, soup, whatever you would like, right, with the runny egg and stuff like that, or really good chili sauce on it, or things like whatever you might have added to your bowl of ramen. Um, like there's a certain bit with the broth there, and these memories come forward, right? So when we're trying to describe something in detail, I could just say, well, it's bowl ramen. Okay, cool, great. Wow. And that could be so generic that it doesn't really matter. But in food writing, your goal is to convey a memory, an experience, an idea to somebody. And luckily, we encounter food with our senses, right? So take a second, take a look at the words that you use to describe them, see if you see any kind of commonality in those words. Um, All of them are probably more than just it's ramen. I would hope it's more than just ramen. At least, some of you probably used a few sensory words, something that is actually within our senses, how we experience the world, right? So, food engages all of our senses pretty much. Well, a lot of our senses, I should say, not all of them. But food engages many of our senses. And we choose food based off how appealing it is, right? All of the fast food commercials that show a burger, that burger in the commercial does not look like the burger we actually get when we go to the fast food place, right? The one at the fast food place is very sad looking in comparison realistically. Now, if you go to like a restaurant, right, or the fast casual some type of place, those burgers usually look pretty good, but a fast food burger is kind of sad in comparison to the commercial. When we're looking at a menu, right, if I know that I enjoy, if I'm going to like Aussie's, right? I don't know if you guys have ever been to the American restaurant group, but Aussie's is a really great restaurant. They have this short smoked salmon. Every time I get it, I remember the last time I had it and how it was really good. Um, and when we bit into something. Oh my God, there we go. The struggle continues. We're still struggling against technology. When we bite into something, we have certain expectation of texture and feel, right? If I bite into a steak, protein has its muscle tissue, right? So there is a texture there that I'm expecting. If I bite into a steak and it's actually cake, like the TV show and stuff, then that's going to be weird and that's going to throw me off, right? Whereas fruit has a certain kind of feel and stuff. So in food writing, you want to convey these type of things to your audience, and since you guys are going to be doing some food writing, you really need to kind of take a look at what your sensory language is like. So here are some words that describe at least six of your senses, right? Visual, sight. This is the color, the appeal, the shape, the appearance of something, right? And you can use words to describe food or other things that are glistening, shadowy, crimson, right? If I want a red velvet cupcake, then I know that it is. It's like I want a really vibrant red color. If something is glistening, that means, right, as a steak that we saw on the grill, that means all that fat's coming off of it. I know that means flavor. Auditory, the noises from people and animals in the environment. These are sound type things, right? Whispering, thundering, hissing. If I'm cooking pancakes, right, I can hear that essentially that dough as I put it, or the batter as I put it on the grill as it sizzles with the butter. Tactile, textures, which are textures, temperature sensation, physical sensations. Something can be gritty, scorchy, velvety. When I put my hand into a bowl of M&Ms, right? I know that there's this texture, viscous type. It feels like gravel and stuff like that. But I know it's candy, so I'm expecting that. Olfactory, just smell, right? We choose a lot about our food from our smell. Things can be aromatic, they're pungent, they can be musty. Really good mushrooms are very musty and smell earthy. Gustatory, this is the taste, right? Flavors on your tongue, bitter, savory, sweet. Kinesthetic, right? Or organic. This is the internal feelings. This is your memory about a thing. I am so hungry, I can feel it. I am aching for it. I am thirsty. My mouth has started watering when I think about this dish. And yes, I know that a few of you keep going back to that part where I said at least six of your senses. You have more than five senses. We teach you guys in elementary school that there are five senses because that's all you can handle. So if you don't believe me, I'll take a moment, open up a tab, go ahead and Google how many senses do humans have. Oh, wait. All right. See? Moving on. So let's take a look at two types of sentences here, right? The first is, I ate a burger, it was good. Great. This is the equivalent of when your parents at the dinner table ask you, how was your day at school? It was fine. And, at some point they've probably said, okay, I need more than that. That doesn't tell me anything. All right. I ate a burger. It was good. Other than knowing that maybe it was ground beef and had some buns, right? But maybe it was a turkey burger and maybe it's surprising to you that it was good. All right. Or something of that nature. Versus scenario B, the charred beef patty crumbled under the weight of the melty, gooey cheese. In other words, the meat just kind of broke apart as I bit into it, and I had that shock of cheese, right? That tartness of the cheese as kind of a counterpoint to the fat in the burger, right? A vivid description. If I'm scenario A doesn't do anything for me. Scenario B puts me in that moment. It tells me more about what you are doing. And that's the difference between good sensory language and bad sensory language, or lack thereof sensory language. Now, please understand there is a reasonable amount of sensory language. I have seen people try to write sentences that are like 50 words of sensory. You don't need that much. I would argue that the sentence you see here for scenario B is a good sensory language match. You could definitely probably go a little bit further and add a few more things talking about the bun and stuff, but there is diminishing returns after a certain point. All right. So let's practice. Paragraph response number 1. Let's talk about how paragraph responses are going to be done this quarter. All right. So instead of a timed paragraph response, because I'm not there, and because there is a tool that I could utilize within Schoology that has an automatic timer and stuff. I gotta be honest, it's a hassle, and as we've seen over the last quarter, digital tools don't always work. So instead of doing that, let's go for quality instead of quantity. All right, this means that the paragraph response is available. All right, I've already published it. It's going to be in activities. Okay. So once you do the weekly discussion, pop down here to do paragraph response. Essentially, this is due before next class. So prior to you going into class on Wednesday, all right, this needs to be completed. All right. That is when it is due. And I'm gonna put a hard limit on it before class. All right, so you need to complete this before 11:20 or whatever on Wednesday. All right, so but that means you have plenty of time to complete the thing. But this also means that my expectations are higher. The grading is double for each of them. All right. The max you can get now is 10 points versus 8 points versus 6 points versus 4 points. And I feel like, even though I showed you guys this slide before, many of you didn't read it because a lot of the paragraph response, you never seem to change on your paragraph responses. If you give me 2 sentences, you're probably not getting more than 4 points on your individual paragraph. All right. And this is per paragraph. So each paragraph, and there's 2 in your paragraph response, is going to be worth 10 points. So if you give me, two sentence paragraphs, you're walking away with 8 points out of 20. All right. And that's a grade raise to 10. Like, that's, put some time into it. Okay. You've got the time now. It's not on a timer. So now I don't want to get too far into this. Okay. I've only got so much time to record these videos and teach these lessons and stuff. And I don't want to, harp on this kind of subject, but it's fairly straightforward, guys. Don't use AI. The few of you who have attempted it and tried to turn in stuff, we've already had conversations. Okay. So we've had talks. Now, do I believe that some of you have utilized it and gotten it past me? Sure, probably. But realistically, if you want to get better at writing, then I need to grade your writing. I don't need to grade your writing as given to you by Claude, by ChatGPT, by Gemini, by any of those others. Like, just write. I would rather have your writing, even if it's not good, that I can grade and give you feedback on so that you can get better at writing, because I would think that you want to get better at writing, than anything that's auto generated at the last minute because you forgot that this was due. So just take that you're sitting in class. This video is not going to be that long. I have no idea what it's at now, but it's going to be 30-40 minutes. You're still going to have a whole ton of time. Just do the thing. All right, do the work, write the paragraph, and then I will grade it, and then you can get better at it. All right. Now, in terms of collaboration, I'm going to be honest, I would kind of prefer if you didn't. I think the discussion boards would be a better avenue for collaboration. So, in other words, hey, what do you think of my post before I post it and stuff, at least before the grading and things like that, or commenting on someone's thing, hey, I like how you described this, I think is a better avenue for collaboration because I do want to see your writing on this. So if you usually get help from somebody, maybe try to just tackle this on your own this time and let's see how it goes. All right. So as a reminder, 6 sentences, minimum in a paragraph, your topic sentence, some kind of context, a piece of evidence, reasoning analysis, and a conclusion. All right. So paragraph response question number 1. I want you to identify 2 specific examples of sensory language from the article you read in the previous class. You guys actually read 2 articles, all right? So if you want to go with one from one article and one from another, that's fine. If your paragraphs go longer than 6 sentences because you have 2 different pieces of evidence, that is perfectly fine, all right? I completely understand that. The minimum is 6. But 2 pieces of sensory language, and you're explaining that sensory language. Okay, explain how these details change your perception of the food or the topic within those articles. If you want to focus on one of the articles, that's fine. If you want to look, do a compare contrast between the 2 articles, that's fine too. This article was very effective in sensory language. This article is not. Fine with either of those plans. I think all of that works. All right. Number 2, write a descriptive paragraph, minimum of 6 sentences, about your favorite dish you brought to class today. Again, the name of it. I really got to work on the phrasing. I did not. If anyone brought their dish to class today because of my ill-advised phrasing, then just let me know and I'll give you candy somehow. But I want you to describe that dish, okay? Which, if you're figuring this out, hey, you probably did that in the discussion board, so maybe use that as your rough draft and then come in and knock out this thing. All right, so you have to describe the dish using at least 3 of 6 senses. And yes, as you guys googled, you have 20-30 senses as a human. I just want you focused on the big ones. Okay, so pick 3 of those senses and describe the dish in that manner. I really want you to paint a very vivid word picture for it. Okay. Also, yeah, because this slide is from my regular class. They only read one. So read the other article. Let me fix this. Read the other article, right? The one that you didn't read yet. I want you to read that before next class. Okay. That'll be, and we'll be utilizing that for the discussion board. So I think that's it. All right. Obviously, grades are in, they are posted. If you want access to the remediations, you'll need to email me direct. It will take me a little bit of time to I will essentially reply with access to the remediations if you guys want to do those. Those will also require grade change forms and other stuff, so just kind of bear in mind it's a slow process for the next couple weeks for me to process some of those things. All right. But there we go. Another successful-ish lesson. All right. That's it. You guys have a great day. I will have another video posted for Wednesday.